Before breaking up with my boyfriend, we had a huge argument. After the quarrel, Saul and I walked away from each other with our backs turned. But in the blink of an eye, we both traveled back to the night during our college days when I confessed my love to him. Saul and I stared at each other with wide eyes for a long time. Then he gave a mischievous smile across from me and raised his chin at me. "Are you still going to confess?" The conflicts between Saul and me had been building up for more than half a year. He was a doctor in his internship period, but he already had to be on standby at the hospital 24 hours a day. We had been living together for over a year, and the number of times I saw him at home could be counted on one hand. At first, I could understand and support him, but I couldn't stand Saul's growing indifference towards me. When he came home, he would always fall asleep as soon as he lay down, as if he didn't even bother to talk to me more. I ran an individual studio with my friends, and most of the work could be done online. So I spent a lot of time at home alone. So I took care of all the big and small matters at home by myself. It ranged from replacing and repairing damaged home appliances to caring for the parents of both sides. Once in the middle of the night, our pet dog suddenly felt nauseous and retched. I took it to the hospital and came back in the early morning. Saul had been sleeping on the big bed in the bedroom, and his posture didn't change at all. He might not even know whether I had gone out or not. But it wasn't just about the dog's illness. When I was sick and went to their hospital, which was on the floor below where he worked, he didn't even spare a moment to come and see me. I love Saul. I've only liked him for all these years. But I gradually began to wonder if this kind of loveless relationship, and even the future marital relationship, was what I wanted. What was the difference between being with him and being single? It was just that more expectations led to more disappointments. And I became what Saul called a person making unreasonable troubles and losing my mind. He said this to my face. That night was the first time we had an argument. Saul finally managed to get home before 8 o'clock in the evening that day. I cooked a table full of dishes to replenish his nutrition. But at the dining table, Saul put down his chopsticks after taking only a couple of bites. I asked him, "Is it not delicious?" He looked a bit impatient. As he unbuttoned his shirt, he gave me a strange look and said, "No." "Then why don't you eat?" He shuffled towards the bathroom in his slippers, and his voice was quite cold. "I already said I'm not hungry." "You've been at work all day and you're not hungry? Did you eat outside?" "I just told you that a colleague in the department had a birthday. So I went to eat and came back early." I said word by word. "But I made it very clear to you that I wanted you to come back for dinner tonight." Saul was also a bit impatient. "Didn't I come back to eat as soon as I saw the message? What are you making a fuss about here?" I stood up all of a sudden. "Saul, can you show me a little respect?" Saul stopped in his tracks towards the bathroom and turned his head to look at me. He said coldly, "How haven't I respected you? I'm very tired. Can you just be quiet?" I smiled. "What do you mean by being quiet? Asking you to eat is not being quiet." He seemed a bit annoyed and frowned. "Forget it. We're back to the same topic again." I looked at him from behind. "You don't have time to talk to me a little more, do you?" He walked forward. "I'll take a shower first," I said behind him. "The shower head broke yesterday." He frowned and turned back. "Didn't you call someone to fix it?" I laughed. "Call someone to fix it? Who should I call? You? By the time you react, our home would have been gone long ago." He stared at me. "Luna, stop making unreasonable troubles and losing your mind." I sniffled, threw down my chopsticks, went into the bedroom, and locked the door. That was the first argument between us. Saul and I met in college. He was a rare handsome guy in the School of Medicine. I took a fancy to him and gave him drinks for a month. Finally, heading fulfilled Maya, I successfully confessed my love to him on a rainy afternoon. From the time we were in love until we graduated from college and started working, we had never had an argument. Either I would back down, or he would let me have my way. But once the first argument happened, the second one came quite quickly. The fuse of the second argument was that my friend was ill. We were still in the Cold War period at that time, and I happened to be on a business trip in another city. My friend couldn't get an appointment with the specialist, and that specialist happened to be Saul's teacher. I called Saul and asked him if he could ask his teacher to help take a look. Saul didn't agree and said it didn't conform to the regulations. I asked one more question. Then why could we get an internal appointment for that minor problem my mom had during the medical examination last year? His voice on the other end also turned cold. Are you comparing your mom with your friend? I also lowered my voice. I'm just talking about the matter objectively and asking. He laughed mockingly on the other end and didn't say anything. I was a bit helpless. I squatted down in the workplace and covered my face with my hands. Saul, can you stop being like this? However, he had already hung up the phone. Many things only have the difference between 0 times and countless times. Just like the fact that Saul and I never used to quarrel, which once made me feel sweet. But once the first quarrel happened, there would be many more to follow. We started a cold war. After we slept in separate rooms at home, our daily routines were very different. As a result, even though we lived under the same roof, we could go 10 days or half a month without meeting each other. This pent-up anger had always been there. So when it happened, it was so unreasonable. I even thought I was very strange myself. Even before that quarrel, I wouldn't have thought that I would be someone who would push my boyfriend so aggressively. Before that, others mostly described me as having too good a temper. However, I had become the kind of person I had never imagined. We dragged it on for half a year. There were continuous disputes over various small issues in the middle. Then cold wars. And then more quarrels. In the end, I could hardly see him even once in 10 days or half a month. It was a vicious cycle. The last time was also the most intense. My friend was discharged from the hospital. And I was so bored at home and I felt like I was going crazy. A few good friends called me out for a gathering at night. The driver for hire parked the car at the entrance of the community. And I waved to the people inside. When I entered the community, the street lamp downstairs was rarely out. I turned on the flashlight on my phone to illuminate the path in. And I smelled the smell of smoke. The firelight flickered slightly in the darkness, like a scarlet and blazing little sun. Luna, are you tired of this life? Saul's voice was a bit hoarse, but it still couldn't hide the coldness and weariness in it. I subconsciously tightened the strap of my bag in my hand. Isn't it you? Saul, I almost don't recognize you anymore. Maybe I didn't recognize myself now either. He laughed, and that laugh made me feel uncomfortable all over. Finally, hadn't fulfilled my sigh. He walked out of the darkness and stopped in front of me. There was a strong and pungent smell of smoke on him. I didn't even know when he had learned to smoke. It turned out that between us, the two people living under the same roof had started to become strangers. Don't recognize me? Am I not satisfying you? Not to your liking anymore? I looked up and stared at him, looking into his black eyes. Saul, for God's sake, can you talk properly? I took a deep breath and lowered my voice. We probably need to have a talk. Saul squinted his eyes due to the smoke and looked down at me. His voice cold. What to talk about? Breaking up? Have you already found someone else? I looked up at him all of a sudden. What are you talking about? Saul. I still couldn't hold back the nasal sound. Since the beginning of this year, we had quarreled a dozen times or so, but I had never shed tears in front of him. But this time, I couldn't hold it back. I looked at him and said slowly, Saul, when I said I don't recognize you, I really mean it. Since the beginning of this year, how many times have I seen you at home? How many words have you calmly said to me? Have you ever asked about the big and small matters at home? I cooked for you, but you didn't like it. I brought you food, but I couldn't find you. When I waited for you to get off work, you had to work overtime. Every time I ask you a couple of questions, you get impatient. I shook my head. I'm at home alone every day. And I also want to chat with you and get your feedback. But you either speak in a sarcastic way or treat me inferiorly. I asked myself, I haven't done anything to be sorry for you. But, Saul, why? I reached out and wiped my eyes vigorously. If you've fallen in love with someone else or have no feelings for me, just say it directly. I won't keep pestering you. After saying all these words in one breath, I paused. Saul on the opposite side stared at me, as if deep in thought. His words were cold. Being with me has indeed wronged you. My heart instantly turned cold. I really wanted to swing my bag at that face across from me and interrupt his unpleasant expression. But I just clenched the strap of my bag and stared at him steadily. I said with some breakdown, "If it's so wronging, then I wouldn't have been so persistent in chasing you in the first place. So you regret it?" I was a bit angry. "Can you understand what I'm saying? Saul? Why are you so difficult to communicate with now?" He looked at me and didn't say anything. Finally, having fulfilled my obsession, I exhausted all my strength and said in a low voice, "Don't you just want to break up? Fine. As you wish. Let's break up." For the last time. I still couldn't bear to throw things at him. I turned around quickly and wiped my face with my hand. I could feel Saul's gaze on me from behind. But I just quickened my pace. However, just 2 steps away, as I lifted my legs, I suddenly heard the patter of rain. The surrounding environment changed in an instant. I held an umbrella over Saul's head. He was carrying a school bag and wearing a mask. I met his gaze all of a sudden. I remembered this scene. This familiar scene. 5 years ago. Outside the building of the School of Medicine. On the 30th day when I was waiting for Saul to give him drinks. It rained heavily. I confessed my love to him in the rain. I even remembered the cheesy love words I had copied from my roommate at that time. Of course. I also remembered Saul's reaction at that time. In the rain. I held an umbrella in one hand and handed him a drink in the other. I was unusually bold. I poured out a long speech that I had memorized over and over again. Of course. Because of my nervousness. I recited it out of order and even missed some key parts. Saul opposite me kept looking down at me. After I finished speaking, he put away that half-smile expression and smiled completely. I said, "Can you not choose such a weather and block the entrance of our building?" He reached out and took the umbrella from my hand, and my view suddenly became wider. In order to stand under my umbrella, he had actually been bending over. Looking a bit feel. Saul looked at the classmates who occasionally walked by around us. Reciting a text to me. "Can we change to another place?" The smile on his face kept hanging, shining brightly on his handsome and young face. I was also very helpless. I have no choice. I only found out in the morning class that the great beauty in the School of Economics and Management. You know, the head of the broadcasting station has taken a fancy to you. I didn't concentrate in class all morning and just wrote these words. I put so much feeling into it. And you still say I'm reciting a text. Saul seemed to laugh beside me. He pushed the back of my neck and walked forward. "You really are something." I pouted. "I have no choice. I have to seize the opportunity. Otherwise, what if you run away in the blink of an eye?" He snorted with a laugh. "Where could I run to? I'm not a little lamb out of a cage." "Oh, right. We just dissected a little lamb in the afternoon." I covered my ears. "Don't tell me." "I'm not listening." The clear laughter of the young man mixed with the pattering sound of the rain, filling the small space under the umbrella. And now, as time has moved on, I look at the still youthful face of the person opposite me and slowly meet his eyes. In just an instant, I know that the Saul across from me is the tired Saul who just broke up with me. Sure enough, he also seems a bit surprised. After looking at me for a while, he habitually reaches as if to touch the cigarettes in his pocket. Not finding any, he gives a cheeky smile as if having just realized something. Still together? The tears that I had just suppressed and hadn't burst out now, mixed with the water vapor around me, can no longer be held back. I start crying directly and throw the umbrella in my hand at his face. He reaches out to hold the umbrella, grabs my other hand, and pulls me under the umbrella. His voice is faint with a hint of a smile. "What are you crying for?" The young Saul still has the lingering smell of disinfectant and reagents from just coming out of the laboratory on him, along with a faint, clean fragrance. This is the Saul I first fell in love with. The Saul without the weariness of an adult later. Without impatience and indifference. The positive, indifferent, and carefree Saul. I hug one of his arms and bury my face in his chest and cry. Standing in front of the experimental building where people come and go, in the pouring rain, I can feel Saul's fingers combing through the top of my hair. Finally, adding fulfilledly. There is no more of that tiredness in his voice. He smiles easily and helplessly. Oh, thou. You cry baby. After crying my fill and venting the grievances that had been pent up for a long time. The rain outside has stopped. And the sunlight in the west is especially bright. The sunlight makes my eyes a bit uncomfortable. I push Saul away and give him a fierce glare. Aren't you the one who wants to break up? And you still dare to hope that I'll confess my love to you? Get lost. Saul closes the umbrella. Props the tip of the umbrella on the ground. Tilts his head slightly. And watches me walk away with a smile. After walking a long distance, I'm about to reach the intersection where the teaching buildings ahead meet. I look back. And Saul is still standing there. Tilting his head. Looking lazy. The light of the setting sun spreads out from behind him. Somehow, this scene is filled with a deep sense of sadness. It makes me feel a strong sense of fear. I look at him for a long time. He doesn't move. And neither do I. Finally, having fulfilled my he waves at me. I haven't followed the standard schedule of my university days. Getting up early and coming back late. For a long time. I'm a bit unaccustomed to it for a while. I've been busy adjusting to it in the days since I came back. At the same time, I'm also waiting. Waiting for Saul to give me an explanation. Back to the present. Many fragments of our past relationship flash before my eyes one by one like a cursory glance. I just realize that I remember the past so clearly and vividly. Saul's smile. The words he said to me. The curve of the corner of his eye when he lowered his head to kiss me. Frame by frame. It seems as if it's right in front of me. As if it was just yesterday. However, I always subconsciously open the work account that no longer exists. Always involuntarily pay attention to the news of the city hospital. And once made a call to Saul's parents as usual. All these things tell me about the awkward situation between Saul and me. The second time I saw Saul after coming here was after one of my classes. As soon as I walked down the steps, Saul seemed to sense something and turned his head. He hasn't worn such a casual light-colored t-shirt for a long time. It's simple and loose. But it outlines the beautiful silhouette of a young man. Holding my breath, I try to pretend I didn't see him. He leisurely smiles and doesn't call me. He just lets me go. In the end, when passing by, my enthusiastic roommate pushes me onto Saul. I bump into him head-on. I smell the faint disinfectant smell on him again. Saul lazily smiles above my head and reaches out to slightly support my waist. I push him away quickly. What are you doing? Saul slightly raises his long legs and walks downstairs. Wasn't it you who pounced on me first? I look at him. He reaches out and grabs my wrist. Come on. Stop making a fuss. Let's go have a meal. Didn't you always want to have the spicy chicken in the small cafeteria? I look at him. How do you know I want to eat it again? He drags my wrist downstairs. How many times have you made it at home? It's always on the table for every meal. I give a cold laugh. Have you ever come back to have a meal? And you think you know everything? Saul doesn't say anything. He just pinches my wrist. It's the peak meal time. And the cafeteria is extremely crowded. I sit at the table waiting for the food. Watching Saul with difficulty walking through the crowd with several trays in his hands. The food in the cafeteria still tastes the same as in my memory. And the person sitting opposite me is still the same person. But I'm already used to eating the dish of chicken and chili that I always make not very successfully. And Saul is no longer the Saul in his 20s. I put down my chopsticks. And Saul lifts his eyelids and gives me a glance. Can you talk to me? He picks up a piece of potato. Lazily. With a hint of a smile in his eyes. Go ahead. Saul. Do you like another girl? Who? I press my lips together and stare at him. I want to have a talk with you. He puts down his chopsticks. Pulls out a tissue. Wipes his mouth and hands. And then replies to me again. What do you want to talk about? It's this attitude again. The attitude of deflecting the topic and not getting to the point. I always feel that Saul is hiding something from me. And I always have an indescribable feeling of unease. I've been in a relationship with him for 5 years. Except for his changes this year. I've always understood him. In the past, we were always sweet. I even knew the emotion represented by the curve of his raised eyebrows. Or is it that no matter how strong the relationship is, it really can't withstand the torrent of time? I look at him. I really don't want to act like this with him pointlessly anymore. I push the chair behind me and want to leave. But Saul stands up again, raises his arm, and puts it on my shoulder. Accompany me to a place. He holds several used plates in one hand and slightly puts his other arm around my shoulder, leading me towards the exit. This posture is quite eye-catching in the university cafeteria. Several people passing by cast their eyes on us. I look at Saul's side profile that is very close to me. His gaze is fixed ahead. It seems that he senses that I'm looking at him, and he puts the tray at the recycling area. The hand on my shoulder pinches my chin and turns my gaze back to the front. Watch the way. In the early autumn. These 2 days are unusually rainy in the north, and a thin layer of water stains covers the ground. I don't know where Saul is taking me. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar campus environment in front of me, I speak in a low voice. Saul. I can't understand you. I admit that I have problems. I can't always control my temper. I'm delicate and sentimental. But I just want you to pay attention to me. We were clearly about to get married. Why has it become like this? I can understand and accept that you're busy with work, but you can't completely ignore me. Why is that? Can't you just tell me? Being 5 years younger, it seems that I've also become a lot more delicate. All the things I used to hold back, pretend, and be cold about in front of Saul have now turned into inexplicably wet eyes. But Saul just gently pats my shoulder. His palm is broad, and the strength is gentle. He's being lazy and pretending to be relaxed again. His fingers slide across my lower eyelid. His voice has the clear and natural tone of his younger days. With a brisk smile. Crying again. Why are you like this weather? It's rainy and not clear. I remember that you used to like giggling the most. Right? I push his hand away. I'm not joking with you. I'll wait for you. At most 10 days for your explanation. Or we'll really break up completely. Saul keeps his whole hand on my shoulder. And our faces are very close. I turn my face to look at him. The corners of his mouth are smiling. But there's an unmaskable look of tiredness in his eyes. This is the Saul I'm familiar with. Not the high-spirited and carefree Saul from 5 years ago. Saul drags me forward. The rain is falling more densely. He puts the hood on the back of my sweatshirt over my head. We gradually quicken our pace in the rain. Saul and I have some similar tastes. For example, we both like to wear light-colored jeans and light-colored sports shoes. And to rather out-of-place college students quickly run to the whole school without an umbrella in the rain. As a result, the cuffs of our pants and our shoes are all soaked with muddy water and stained with fine mud. Saul takes me to the small grocery store at the east gate of the school before stopping. It's still the exquisitely decorated, but expensive campus supermarket in my memory. On a rainy day, many small raindrops are also on the glass door. Through the door, you can see the small tables and chairs for self-study and dining in the small supermarket. It's exactly the same as in my memory. This is the place where Saul and I had our first date. At that time, I was still shy just after getting together with Saul. He asked me to wait for him after class. I didn't listen to the class for the whole morning. I was sitting at my seat, thinking about all sorts of things, and nervously asking my roommate beside me all kinds of questions. It was also a rainy day. Saul held an umbrella, and we just slowly talked. I don't know how long we walked. In the end, we found that we had crossed the whole school from west to east. The boiled corn in the small supermarket gives off a sweet aroma in the rain. Saul takes my hand that I didn't know where to put along the way, looks down at me, and says, "Let's go in and sit for a while." We walked slowly that day, dawdling. I really can't remember what we talked about at that time. But the restless beating of my heart at that time, the damp water vapor in the air, and the faint smell of disinfectant on Saul mixed with the faint smell of laundry detergent have always firmly remained in my memory. Over all these years, they have been stored in the deepest and most precious place. Saul just happens to turn his head to look at me at this moment, and he gives a lazy smile. "Shall we go in and have a corn and a cup of milk tea? We just finished our meal and ran here." Unlike before when we would slowly wander for an hour to get here. So we don't feel hungry at all now. But I don't refuse Saul. I don't say anything either. I just nod. Saul's palm is a bit warm. At this time. His fingers are still white, slender, and well-defined. The way they naturally curl when holding mine is very beautiful. We wipe the rainwater off our shoes on the doormat of the supermarket. The corn is bought. 2 cups of the sweet and sickly sweet milk tea you need to the grocery store. And Saul also buys me some roasted chicken wings. They are placed on the table between us. These were my favorite foods in the past. And Saul remembers it clearly. But that was in the past. The out-of-season corn is not sweet. The milk tea is too sickly sweet. And the roasted chicken wings are too salty and dry. I don't eat the foods I liked in my student days anymore. I look at the things in front of me and don't say anything. Saul. What do you mean? He sits opposite me, leaning lazily against the back of the chair. Now he always seems very tired. In the past, even if Saul had classes from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, he was always full of energy. After class every night, he could still drag me to the gym or go out with friends. He has really changed a lot. Saul doesn't answer my question. He just asks, "Don't you always want to know what my first impression of you was?" This is the question I often ask after being in a relationship. I'm always curious about how Saul sees me in his eyes. But every time I ask, he always evades the question and refuses to answer. I looked up at him. Saul placed his hand on the table. His palm was smooth, and his fingers were slender. The corner of his lips lazily curled up into an empty arc. His gaze seemed to be on me. Yet it also seemed to be vaguely directed elsewhere. "The first time I saw you. You probably don't remember. It was in the supermarket downstairs of the main teaching building. It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening when I finished my experiment that day. You and I picked up the last bowl of hot porridge in the small supermarket at the same time." Saul's eyes seemed to glance at me. "I was about to give it to you. Just as I turned my head, you had already let go and stuffed it into my hand." Smiling foolishly and saying, "It's okay, bro. You can have this bowl." He smiled as he said this. I really didn't have any impression of this incident, but after Saul mentioned it, I managed to piece together some fragments from my memory. There was a period when I didn't have many classes and was addicted to online PC games. I was tricked a lot in the game. At first, I just kept my microphone muted. But later I started calling others brothers or arguing and cursing with my teammates and opponents. Was that the first time you saw me? Or was that when you got an impression of me? The milk tea on the table was gradually getting cold. Since I didn't want to waste it, I started to casually eat the now cold food. Saul didn't answer my question. He continued, "So when you handed me a pink drink a month later, I didn't react at first. But you still had that signature silly smile. And your face was really red. I remembered you immediately." The incident he mentioned was naturally as clear as yesterday in my memory. I broke off the small corn kernels along the lines of the corn cob, piled them up, and shared them with Saul opposite me. Keeping my eyes down, I didn't look at him. That wasn't a silly smile. That's just how I smile. People say I have a gentle smile. But you say I smile stupidly. So what was your first impression of me? I asked in a low voice. You were very much like the timid and cute rabbits we used in our experiments. The next day, Saul woke me up with a phone call at 8 o'clock in the morning. After graduating from university. Apart from occasionally getting up to see Saul off to work and preparing breakfast for him, my biological clock had always been in a mess. So at this moment, I was very impatient to be woken up. I quickly got dressed and rushed downstairs. Saul was standing by the bicycle shed with a bag in his hand. When I saw him, I paused in my steps. Maybe it was a coincidence. Or maybe it was on purpose. Before Saul and I got together, we both had this unisex sweatshirt of a certain brand. Once, when we wore it at the same time, our roommates made fun of us for a whole day. And today, the clothes I casually put on when I got up early were the same as the ones Saul was wearing over there. The blue color made the skin look fair. The pale golden sunlight in the morning fell on Saul, who was slightly tilting his head to look at me. It was really too beautiful. Saul took 2 steps towards me. At 8 o'clock in the morning, a group of students who had the first class at 8 o'clock had just passed by. At this time, There were rarely a few people downstairs of the dormitory. In August, the osmanthus tree downstairs had already bloomed and spread its fragrance early. When the wind blew, a layer of small orange flower fragments on the ground undulated. He grabbed my wrist and led me outside. I pulled my hand back. "What's wrong with you? Aren't you going to class in the morning?" He had the most classes as a sophomore. And he almost had full classes during the day. He switched the school bag to the other hand and lazily put his arm on my shoulder. I was a bit of a good student back then and never skipped the first class at 8 o'clock. "Let's try it today and skip class for a whole day." I gave him a glare. "What are you up to?" Saul smiled and patted my head. "Why are you so worried?" We went to the cafeteria and had a very healthy breakfast. Then Saul led me towards the library. I put my hands in the front pockets of my sweatshirt and was a bit reluctant. I didn't bring anything with me. And it felt a bit out of place to go to a place like the library. Saul led me to a corner seat. Made me sit down. And then he took out a tablet from his bag, placed it diagonally on the table, and gave me one of the earphones. Looking at the blue round-headed robot on the screen, I understood what was going on. Saul was studying medicine. And he had a lot of classes. He almost had no free time during the day. In a university relationship, the cafeteria, the playground, and the library were the classic places. I often went to the library to study by myself and then made an appointment with the busy Saul for dinner in the middle. Once, a young couple near my seat were sitting opposite me, both looking at the video on their mobile phones with their heads down. They were so sweet. And I envied them very much. I didn't find it noisy. I just sent a message to Saul, "I wish you could be free soon. I want you to accompany me in the library. We don't have to study. I want you to watch the final episode of Doraemon with me." At that time, Saul replied with an "okay." But by some twist of fate, we never fulfilled that little wish. I gave Saul 10 days to either make things clear or we would completely become strangers. But Saul seemed completely unaware and had no intention of speaking at all. I didn't know what his plan was. But we weren't idle during these 10 days. He would lazily smile beside me every day, pretending that everything was fine as if he didn't care about anything. He would skip class with me for a day and watch the final episode of Doraemon in the library, along with several big movies of the same series. After starting work, he had few holidays. Once, we finally managed to go on a date to the cinema. But halfway through, Saul received an urgent call from the hospital. I understood the nature of the doctor's profession and showed my understanding. But I couldn't help feeling disappointed. After that, when we occasionally went on a date, I was always on tenterhooks. Always afraid that he would be called away by a phone call again, leaving me alone with the carefully arranged date activities. He would also grandly and high-profile appear in our communication class with his medical school textbooks and stand beside my seat, ignoring the teasing looks from my friends from all directions. He listened with great interest and even actively participated in the discussion. After we graduated from university, once I watched a youth film with a university theme at home and said to Saul, who came back late at night, "These young people nowadays are so good at being romantic. You accompany me to class. And I accompany you to class. We never did that back then." Saul looked very tired at that time. Sitting at the table, he had no interest in his favorite late-night snack and said inferiorly, "With so many classes, there's no time. Besides, there aren't even enough seats for students majoring in our field and those taking our minor courses in a big classroom." Saul would also secretly pull some strings and take me to the place where the school of met us and kept those small animals, where we could pet the sturdy dogs or hold the warm rabbits. Or on a sunny afternoon, he would take me to the playground and run around with a group of children to fly kites. I even thought that Saul just didn't want to lower his head and apologize. He was using these things to make me soft-hearted. And then the two of us would naturally patch things up. Occasionally, I would tentatively ask him about it, but every time he would just smile faintly and brush it off, as if he didn't want to talk about the topic. On the 9th day, Saul took me out of the school. In the afternoon, he held my hand and climbed up the mountain peak, which was an excellent place to watch the sunrise. In the second half of the journey, I didn't want to walk anymore. Saul turned back and smiled at me. Then he squatted down. What can I do? Luna. Come on up. I lay on Saul's back. He looked thin, but his bones were well proportioned. And he walked steadily on the rugged mountain path. I looked at the back of his neck and his black hair, which glowed with a bright and clean luster under the setting sun. We set up a tent on the mountain. After it got dark, the stars in the night sky were especially bright. Saul and I sat on the grass outside the tent. I tilted my head to look at Saul's face in the night. The moonlight and the faint light coming from the tent behind us intersected and reflected on Saul's profile. But it was still blurry, and I could only make out the general outline. Saul finally stopped smiling. There was a deathly stillness and a gloomy look on his face. His voice came from beside me, but it carried a gentle warmth and a faint smile. Finally, having fulfilled my obsession, as if he was interested in my work, he started to ask, "How much can you earn in a month by collaborating with your friends?" Luna? I looked at his face and touched it. He took my hand away and held it in his palm. His palm was very cold, so I placed my other hand on it. It's more than enough to support you, me, and our family. Saul, if you're very tired, you can take a break. I'm here too. I'm not always the one who needs your protection. I can also protect you. He tilted his head and rested it on my shoulder, giving a soft man response. I have a small frame and narrow shoulders, so he must have been very uncomfortable lying like that, but he didn't move. His voice sounded faintly in the deepening night. Yes. You can take care of things on your own now. But still, be careful. When running a studio and doing business. When it comes to money issues. You can't just muddle along with your good friends. You can help each other privately. But everything should be clear on the public side. I know. Even brothers should settle accounts clearly. We don't distinguish between each other privately. But the company's accounts should be crystal clear. Saul casually squeezed my hand. He continued. The competition in your industry is also fierce. Don't panic. Don't rush. Take your time. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. I'm only responsible for drawing and designing in our company. I don't have to worry about so many things. Besides, we're all very laid back. He sighed and continued. Your daily routine. Sleeping during the day and staying up at night. You still need to adjust it. Do more exercise. Go out and walk around more. And don't stay at home all day. I looked at Saul's profile as he leaned on my shoulder. The outline and shadows overlapped in the moonlight, giving a thick and beautiful look. I softened my voice. I want to go out and have fun with you. But you're always not available. Didn't I follow your daily routine in the past 2 years? But every time you weren't at home during the day, I was really bored. He seemed to smile. If you're bored, go and have fun. Or sign up for an interest class. Get more sunlight and keep your body healthy. Saul continued. Regarding my parents. You can just give them a call occasionally. There's no need to send them money or buy them things. Their retirement pensions are more than enough. I looked at the dark lines of the distant mountains. They're your parents. And they're also my parents. I'll treat them the same way I treat my own parents. Saul didn't respond but just changed the topic. You barely passed your driver's license test, and you're not good at driving. If you want to drive on the road in the future, you must find someone to practice with you several times. Don't be afraid when you're on the road. Keep a safe distance from other cars. Stay in your lane. Follow the traffic rules. And don't panic. Don't be afraid. Drink less carbonated drinks. Eat less spicy and greasy food. And drink less coffee. You already had a bit of an ulcer when you had a gastroposky last time. You need to take good care of your stomach. Eat more so that you can gain some weight. Get along well with your friends. When you encounter problems, your family and friends are the most important. Always keep an umbrella in your bag. Otherwise, you'll get sick if you get caught in the rain. There are many good people in the world. But there are also many bad people. Don't trust others easily. But also don't judge people and define them too easily. Be more careful and don't always be so naive. Saul babbled and gave me a lot of instructions. He seemed to be saying whatever came to his mind slowly. And he talked all night long. As if he had said all the words that he hadn't said in the past half year. Finally, having fulfilled my He called my name. He said, "Luna, I'm going to tell you something. You're not allowed to cry." I sniffled. There was a wind in the mountains, making me shiver with cold. The fuse of the bomb had burned to the end and was about to explode. I was so scared and terrified that even my teeth started to chatter. Saul finally lifted his head from my shoulder and slowly stroked my head. He smiled and said, "Luna, I might be dying." My tears finally couldn't be held back and gushed out. The faint smile still lingered on the corner of Saul's mouth. "Come over here. When I see you standing in front of me, I know this is a dream that we had together." He reached out and wiped the tears that couldn't stop flowing down my face. I said, "You're not allowed to cry. What's wrong with you, Saul?" I hugged him tightly and finally burst into tears, holding the handsome young man in front of me at this moment. I'm scared. Saul. I'm scared." I felt myself enveloped by overwhelming fear and darkness. The knife that had always hung over my head finally fell. And then I quickly fell into the abyss, unable to resist. "Saul. Don't scare me." Okay. I'm scared. I won't pick on you anymore in the future. Don't scare me. I don't want." He just gently and slowly patted my back. And his voice was gentle. "Don't cry. Everyone has this kind of experience once. Don't make a fuss. I'll tell you. The disease Saul had was pancreatic cancer. The king of cancers. There are no obvious symptoms in the early and middle stages of this kind of cancer. It was only after the physical examination report in the first quarter of this year came out that he knew about it. But it was already in the late stage. All kinds of treatment methods at this time are just in vain to extend his lifespan. The night Saul got the various examination results and was diagnosed, he sat in the corridor of the hospital for most of the night. Then he knew that his life had entered a rapid countdown. But he had to hide it from me completely. He said that at that time, he thought that anyway, he was going to die. And he still had a few months to hide it from me. He wanted me to get tired of him. Feelings can't withstand being neglected and ignored. At least make me not have such deep feelings for him anymore. So while he was seriously ill, he still had to play the role of the indifferent Saul in front of me. Because I always relied on him too much. He really couldn't rest assured and couldn't break up with me cleanly. However, when he was seriously ill, as long as he ignored me a little bit, he could act like the person I saw in front of me. At home. Falling into a deep sleep as soon as he slept was a sequelae after taking the medicine for treatment. He wanted to wake up, but he couldn't. Many times, when he was sleeping in bed, he would fall into a brief coma, including the night I took the cat to see a doctor. Before I went out, he had already fallen into a coma and lost consciousness. And he didn't wake up slowly until the next day. When I went to the hospital to see a doctor, he was in a ward 5 floors away from me. He had just woken up from a coma and didn't have the strength to get up at all. Finally, having fulfilled my say, he asked a familiar nurse to take care of my situation. He had no appetite. So it wasn't just my cooking that he couldn't eat. He couldn't eat anything he saw. In the last few months, he lost a lot of weight. So he rarely saw me, afraid that I would notice something was wrong. In the later stage, his symptoms were obvious. He was sallow and emaciated. When he came back, he would occasionally ask the nurses in the department to help him put on some powder. He was a doctor and knew his physical condition very well. Saul said that sometimes he would envy my friend, the high school classmate who helped me register for a doctor's appointment and gave me a ride home on the way. He said that at that time, he was annoyed by taking medicine. And he was even a bit irritable and depressed. He would also be jealous of my friend. He envied and was jealous that that friend still had a long life ahead. But now, a ray of light was faintly showing in the sky. Yet he asked me to give that friend a chance. Saul looked into my eyes and said, "I can tell that that person likes you very much. In the future, you must find someone who treats you well. Someone who can accompany you to play everywhere, go to the movies, and be with you no matter what you do. You're still too young and have a very long life ahead of you." I kept shaking my head while crying. My tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away hard, afraid that I wouldn't be able to see him if I blinked. My words were intermittent and I was almost choking. No. I don't want that. I don't want anyone else. I just want you. I want to marry you. I want to be with you. Luna. I can't accompany you anymore. Don't be afraid. Don't cry. I held his hand tightly. Saul. I can't do it. I really can't. Just think of it as a dream. Sometimes I'm very selfish. I don't want you to forget me. But then I think that my existence is a knot in your heart, and I don't want to delay your bright future. So, be a good girl and forget me. The sun finally climbed over the outline of the mountain. The rising sunlight emitted beautiful golden rays. It was a new day. Saul lowered his head and kissed me. This kiss was a bit astringent, mixed with my tears. The sunlight shone through my blurred vision. Saul stroked my face. His black pupils were as clear and gentle as when I first saw him. Then he said, Luna. Let's break up. I burst into tears. But I couldn't keep him. It seemed that I had lost him forever. When I opened my eyes, the bedroom was brightly lit, and it was a lazy and warm environment. But the pillow by my ear was wet. My hair was damp, and my face was covered with dried tears. There was only deep panic and fear in my heart. I searched the whole house. The cat was so scared that it jumped to the top of the refrigerator. But there was no sign of Saul. I didn't care about changing my clothes. I drove the car that Saul had parked in the parking lot and hadn't driven for a long time. I drove all the way at the highest speed limit to Saul's parents' house. But when I got to the door of the house, I started to be afraid again. I exhaled a breath and then tremblingly opened the door with the key. Pushing the door open, the light from the sun and the window slanted and sprinkled in the middle of the room. The house was very clean. As clean as a show house. The furniture was covered with clean white cloths. And the floor was spotless. I made a lot of noise pushing open the doors of each room. However, there was still no one there. I walked around a few times and didn't miss any corner. Finally, Feldly, on the table in Saul's bedroom, I saw the photo album containing all our commemorative photos and a bank card. I opened the photo album. And it was full of photos that Saul and I took together. But in each photo, Saul's part had been carefully cut out along the outline. In the thick photo album, there was only me left in it over and over again. It was like waking up from a big dream. When the dream ended, there was no one from the dream left. He didn't leave me any thought of him. It was a complete and decisive farewell. I remembered that on the top of the mountain. When the dream was about to disappear, I held on to him tightly and hugged him. He smiled and whispered in my ear. I care a lot about my image in front of you. So I didn't endure the futile chemotherapy. And I didn't want you to see me lying there ugly and quietly. Luna. Just think that I broke up with you and that I went to another place. So he wouldn't even die in front of me. I looked for Saul for a long time. I couldn't get through to his parents' phone. He had already resigned from the hospital. I even went to look for him among his relatives and friends. And even in his ancestral hometown. I went to our undergraduate university. That day, as the sun was setting, Saul stood at the end of the road with an umbrella in his hand and smiled lazily at me. The light spread out from behind him. That scene seemed to be right in front of my eyes. The young man was like that. But it was the starting point of our farewell. Saul took me through the whole campus in the rain. We didn't have an umbrella during the running process. Even though I had put on the hood of my clothes, he still put one hand in front of my forehead. Finally, having fulfilled my at the door of the small supermart, his forehead hair was wet. He smiled and looked at me. And there was a deep attachment in his eyes that I didn't notice at that time. People were still coming and going in the small supermarket. And the fragrance of the corn still wafted far away. But no one asked me if I wanted to eat it anymore. There were many couples in the library. Sweet and affectionate and well-matched. There were also many people watching the same movie or playing with their phones in the corners. But where were Saul and I? The person who used to hold me, drag me, laugh at me, and protect me. Where did he go? I never found him again. My Saul. He completely disappeared from my life like that. Along with that Luna who always giggled at him. I lost that part of myself forever. The intense pain lasted for a long time and was growing day by day. I slowly realized that I was actually so lonely. I waited in the cinema for a long time. That no one would take time out of their busy work to accompany me to watch those mindless and hilarious movies anymore. I walked through the whole hospital. And there was no longer that handsome young doctor in a white coat. He used to steal a moment to give me a funny smile when he saw me. At home, no one would listen to my inexplicable jokes before going to bed every night anymore. No one would pat my back and give appropriate responses even when they were extremely sleepy. My dream didn't wake up, and I would always be trapped in it. I remembered that night downstairs at home. Saul smoked a cigarette to cover up the strong smell of his illness. I held back my tears in front of him, and he stared at me deeply for a long time. It turned out that was our end.